Hanukkah, everyone. With so many developments to discuss today, you definitely picked an important time to tune in. There's a lot of news flying, so let's get straight to the source. We have IDF spokesperson Sergeant Fay with us to give us an update on the situation from the ground. Sergeant Fay, please take it away.
Hello. Hi, everybody, and happy Hanukkah. Just to give a little bit of an update, I'm going to give a little bit of an overview of where we're holding right now, and then we can go ahead and dive into some deeper questions that might be coming up. So today is the 68th day since our start of the war against Hamas that had started with the October 7th massacre. And right now, we are still focused on our primary missions with this war, which is to operate against Hamas, to completely destroy their infrastructure and their leaders, and to dismantle the organization, as well as to bring our hostages home and to return security and safety to Israel's borders. We're focusing, and I want to walk you guys through kind of three separate areas right now, so you can have a little bit of an understanding of where we are holistically. So number one, we are focusing, right now and continuing in our mission to just dismantle the threats across our borders. So starting, with Hamas, we have struck over 22,000 targets. We have found over 800 tunnel shafts and destroyed 500 of those, and we are now currently operating in intense battles across Gaza to dismantle Hamas's threat. And specifically right now, focusing on in Sejaiya, Jabalia, and Khan Yunis, specifically in the Kasbah also of Sejaiya, which is a very, very close quarter combat. Unfortunately, you may have heard this morning of 10 IDF soldiers, Golani soldiers, that were engaged in a very, very fierce battle there. 10 of those who fell, including a colonel as well as a lieutenant colonel, and may their memories be blessed. Those were intense, again, battles with a lot of the Hamas fighters coming up from underground tunnels. The entire area, again, both northern and southern Gaza, is built with this massive tunnel system, which you guys have heard. And a lot of the Hamas fighters, in contrast to IDF soldiers that are there fighting, are using those tunnels and going underground, hiding from the IDF forces. And they continue to use these main areas. The Kasbah is a main thoroughway. It is a main area in that had shops and that had homes, and that, again, was a civilian structure in a civilian area. And we continuously see Hamas using these civilian areas for their fighting, including, recently we found, I'm sure you have seen so many of the footage, so many pieces of footage of Hamas using hospitals and mosques. Recently we found a teddy bear that had sniper rifles embedded within the teddy bear, as well as RPG training camps within mosques. And Hamas is still firing rockets from within these civilian areas, and not only just civilian areas, but also humanitarian zone areas, or areas that we have recommended and asked the civilians in Gaza to move towards those areas, that we would focus those areas on being safer zones for them. Hamas is utilizing that to fire rockets at Israeli civilians. More than 11,000 rockets, even still today, rockets being fired from Hamas in Gaza. And on the northern front, just when we're speaking about the threats on our border, so northern front, on Tuesday, last night, there were 3 rockets that were fired from Syria. 2 of those fell in Syria, as well as rockets that were fired from Lebanon. On Monday, Hezbollah fired rockets from very, very close, only 100 so meters away from a UN compound, again, violating international law with doing that. And we are continuing to struck Hezbollah terror targets within Lebanon, including today. Today, there were rockets fired from Lebanon into towards Israel. Some of those fell in open areas in Israel. Some of those fell actually in Lebanon, and we're continuing to strike at the sources of those rockets, as well as additional Hezbollah strongholds and Hezbollah terror cells and military compounds. So it's a little bit of an overview of what we're doing and what threats we're facing. Now, at the same time, as part of our mission with this war and with this offensive, is to ensure that we are doing what we can to bring our hostages home. Right now, we are at 135 hostages still being held in Gaza. The other day, we were at 137. 2 of those hostages that were brought home were the bodies of 2 hostages, Eden Zakaria and Ziv Dado, Eden, who was kidnapped and taken hostage from the party, and Ziv, who fell, was taken, his body was taken captive on October 7th in a battle on one of the bases in southern Israel. And with the attempt to return those bodies was where some of the intense fighting did take place, and where some IDF soldiers were killed. Within that, really, again, that holy mission to bring these hostages home. We will continue to do everything possible to make sure that these hostages get home to us, and that we are able to maintain security along all of Israel's borders. So far, we have returned 5 bodies of hostages to Israel since our mission to bring the hostages home. So including when we're looking at just kind of general numbers, we have 110 released hostages. That was part of the operational pause, 5 bodies of captive hostages that were brought home. And we are now, again, 135 remaining in captivity. We have that focus right now on dismantling Hamas's terror threats, doing everything that we can to bring our hostages home, but also not forgetting that we are at war with Hamas and not with the people of Gaza. And in that vein, we are continuing to bring humanitarian aid to the people of Gaza. And in fact, we've just reopened up the Keren Shalom crossing, not for crossing, but to increase the security screening of the aid trucks so that we can bring in and offer more aid to the people in Gaza, to the civilians in Gaza. So just yesterday, we transferred 197 trucks that were screened and transferred. There were 117 that were done and checked at the southern area of Nitzana, and 80 at this newly reopened screening area of Kerem Shalom. It's about 4,000 trucks with overall, and roughly 7,000 tons of aid, including food and water and shelter supplies. We are continuing to ask for the civilians in Gaza to move out of hotbed areas, to move out of combat areas. And we have released many, many different options and opportunities, including leaflets, including text messages, including calls, including interactive maps, including multiple ways for Gazan civilians. And right now what we've done is we've actually even built a smaller grid system. So it's not just a general move towards this area, but we are indicating specific areas that there will be combat and asking the civilians in that area to move out of specific zones, very, very strategic, pinpointed, and very focused zones that we are focusing our strikes in and our operations in. So that's a little bit, hopefully I covered a little bit of what's been going on with about, again, 10 minutes that we had, and I'd be happy to open it up to questions. I do want you guys to know there are some questions I may or may not be able to answer, but I will do my best to hopefully have some of those answers for you.
For sure. Thank you so much, Sergeant Fay. That was really, really important to go through. I just wondered if you could help us understand why it's important, aside from, the deceased hostages, those who died in captivity, having, a respectful final resting place. Why is it important that Israel reclaim their bodies? It may be that some people watching don't understand, why would we risk soldier lives, for example, if these hostages have already passed? Can you help us to understand why that's important?
Our mission since the start of this operation has been to dismantle Hamas and to bring our hostages home. And everything that we do and that our soldiers do are aimed towards those missions, are aimed towards, again, ensuring that Gaza can never be a launch pad for Hamas attacks against Israel, and to bring the hostages home, whether they are dead or alive. It is a duty of ours to bring solace, to bring the families, these hostages back to their families, and whether they get to sleep in bed at night, reunite with their families, as some of those beautiful and very, very moving videos that you might have seen when they are reunited with their families, or whether it is, again, those really awful but very, very comforting moments of understanding when they're standing and being able to bury their children. This is what our mission is we will continue to do what we can to follow through that mission and to bring those hostages home.
It's really incredible, the values of the IDF, the values of the Jewish Army, and ensuring closure to the families and respecting every single life in that way. One of the things that we've been seeing a lot in the news, and I wonder what you can help us understand more about is the surrenders. It seems that we've been seeing large numbers of Hamas terrorists surrendering. Can you help us to understand what's causing those mass surrenders, and also help us to understand the optics so that we can better understand the pictures that are coming out and explain them to our circles of influence?
Yes, there is a lot of conversation around those. And the optics, to be frank, are not that great. They're not looking great. But we also have to pause and kind of remember that these are Hamas terrorists. Oftentimes, not often, more than often, Hamas terrorists, and we've seen this through years of dealing with Hamas, have no qualms about suicide attacks, have no qualms about getting close and blowing themselves up or taking out grenades hidden from within their clothing, within their pockets, within them, and attacking. In many times in Israel, it was civilians and bus bombings and pizza shops. But in the case in Gaza, it's attacking our soldiers. And that is all of that actions, any of these photos you have seen, that is all done within the rules and regulations of war. They have been checked. Their clothing has been checked and removed. And afterwards, their clothing was returned. They were photos that were taken that probably should not have been taken at that time. But that was also part of a process that is a very, very relevant, recognized, and necessary process to ensure that our soldiers would not be hurt or harmed in the process of arresting and detaining these Hamas soldiers, these Hamas terrorists. Now, this was surrender. These were them going and saying, okay, we know the IDF is here. And when you think about the IDF's being able to accomplish any of the missions, whether even going back to the operational pause, the reason that happened was because of military might of the IDF was going in and saying, we will find you. And we had made that very clear. We will find you wherever you are. We will take you out and we will return safety and security to Israelis. And they are recognizing this. They are recognizing that we are not stopping, that we are not going and we are not turning a blind eye, and that we are saying we will complete this mission, whatever it takes. And that is encouraging Hamas fighters and Hamas terrorists to come up from their tunnels that they've been hiding in, or from areas that they are trying to hide, and surrender and be arrested. Now, these are also sometimes folks of Hamas fighter age that we might have seen, and we might have detained, checked them, and if they were not affiliated with Hamas, and if they were not part of Hamas's, if they were not part of Hamas, then they were also allowed to go towards the areas or back towards civilian areas. So there's a little bit of a mix. We will be releasing more information about this in the future, so keep an eye out on that, and hopefully over the next day or two, or by the next time you have a briefing, there will be a little bit more clarity for you folks on what these look like. But we do want to remind everybody, and I think this is just for you to be aware of, this is the fact that these Hamas terrorists are here and they are surrendering and they are alive is in stark contrast to the 1,200 Israeli civilians that were massacred in their bed as they wore their pajamas, and the mothers and the fathers and the children and the babies that were massacred in cold blood. And the fact that these pictures even exist, that I believe this, that there are Hamas terrorists that are alive, standing there, and that the IDF is not going and just doing whatever they want with these terrorists. They are doing a proper process of ensuring that they are checked and that the IDF soldiers there are secure, is something that you can push back against. And that is something that you can say. The fact that they are even there shows the restraint and shows the focus and shows the very, very, very focused efforts of the IDF to specifically engage in this war within the realm of, with the rules of war.
Absolutely. It's in every step of the way, the IDF truly shows itself to be the most ethical army that the world has ever seen in history. Some are calling yesterday one of the deadliest days of fighting in Gaza, and I wondered if you could, for our soldiers, and I wondered if you could explain some of the things that we're seeing. You began in your briefing, but to expound upon how Hamas is using booby traps in the building, using our, once an explosion goes off and our first responders come, using that opportunity to set another explosive. And then when first responders come again to launch another explosive, really using our ethics against us and even using UN facilities against us. Like, can you please help shine light, because we're hearing a lot coming from the UN and it would be great to understand what's actually happening on the ground.
Yeah, I think simply that you put it better than I can right now. There is proof time and time and time again that we see that Hamas is using these tactics to, again, fire and hide and fire and hide and fire and hide, and then to also come out and attack our soldiers when we are going into those areas. There were soldiers that were killed in that firefight that had gone in after to take away those other soldiers that were injured, that were part of the operation, the team to rescue other fallen soldiers that were killed after they had come in and after the battle. There are intense fight. There's intense fighting. There is a very, very, very well armed, but it's not even about being well armed Hamas right now. They know they have known that area, and they have built over the past, since they took control over the Gaza Strip, since 2006, 2007, they have been building that area as a fighting ground. They have been embedding and knowing every single element and every single part of the Gaza Strip, and they know exactly how to fight, and they know how to hide, and they know how to attack. And that is why it is still so important that we continue to support the soldiers and to continue to do whatever we can to make sure that they are well armed and well equipped to fight this really, really, really brutal terror organization.
One of the ways that Hamas has been successful in hiding has been the tunnels. And we've been hearing some, what I guess I'll call rumors, about perhaps using seawater to destroy the tunnels. These are sort of spotty reports. Is there anything that you can share with regard to that?
I can't go into any details. I can't confirm nor deny. But what I can say is we are doing whatever we can to destroy these tunnels. Like I had said, we have found over 800 tunnel shafts. We have destroyed over 500 of them. And our goal is, and when you look at the big picture and you understand that Hamas is utilizing these tunnels in order to attack Israelis, they use them in order to hide hostages or to move hostages from one place to another. They've used them in the past. The other tunnels that were towards the outer areas of Gaza, one of the focuses of Tzuk Eitan, of that prior operation, was to destroy. Those were offensive tunnels that actually led into Israel. These tunnels are a massive deal, and we are continuing to do whatever we can to completely dismantle them and ensure that they can't be used by Hamas.
Yeah, it really is a city beneath the city. It's something out of like a horror movie. Just wild to imagine. And we're grateful that the IDF is doing whatever's necessary to stop the threat that they pose to Israel. I was wondering if we can just shift gears for a moment. I know we're sort of running low on time, but one of the things we haven't spoken about yet is the increasing involvement of Yemen's Houthis in this conflict. It seems that there have been some naval developments that have been happening, and I wondered if you could shed light on the Houthis' stated objectives, their actual attacks, Israel's response, their funding, their role in the big picture. Anything that you can help us understand better there.
So, right now we are working with our partners in the region against that threat. And this threat is obvious when it's, in general, it's a threat, a physical threat. These are terrorists that are attacking ships, that are attacking that region. It's also a monetary threat, right? We are seeing issues when it comes to the economics, when it comes to free trade. Right now, we are working hand in hand with our partners in the region, and this is the Houthi threat, because it is not directly right now in Israel. It is a little bit more of a bigger governmental conversation, governmental decision. I can't dive deeply into it, but we are very thankful and working in conjunction with our partners in the region on focusing and recognizing that there is that threat, and doing what we can to ensure it doesn't expand and doesn't grow. Can't go into too much more about that, but it does point out to, again, Iran's very, very long stretching arm, providing support, training, military weapons, as well as monetary support to not only Hamas and not only Hezbollah, but we see it also very actively right now with the Houthis in Yemen. And it definitely is something that we are focused on, and we do not want right now a multi-front war. Our focus right now is Hamas. Our focus right now is to dismantle Hamas, and we are doing what we can to ensure that the other borders around Israel are maintaining some semblance of quiet and safety and security.
Thank you so much, Sergeant Fay. This was really, really illuminating, this Hanukkah edition of the briefing. So thank you so much for shedding light and for all that you're doing to help bring light and good information where we're seeing a lot of darkness. So thank you so much. Happy Hanukkah.
Happy, my pleasure.
One final important message, friends. I just want you to know that you actually are on the front lines with our soldiers. It's true. Every combat soldier headed into Gaza is wearing thermals you provided, has a backpack filled with hygiene essentials that you delivered, sleeps under tents that you made possible. To put this in context, you need to understand that many soldiers are going on 21 days without a shower. Their health is only upheld by your gifts. We have fulfilled every need the IDF has asked of us because of you. So many of these items that we take for granted are truly essential to keeping clean, healthy, and protected from the inherently unsanitary conditions of war across enemy lines. So thank you for making sure that our soldiers have the most important thing, their health and their strength to win this war for our home. I hope that you have your FIDF gear too. The news and social media would have all of us feeling isolated, outnumbered, and misunderstood, but it's not true. We have friends. We must show up and show our support in every way that we can. So go to FIDF.org, visibly stand with Israel in your swag, tell the stories of our modern day Maccabees, and give of your resources, whatever you can, your time. Together we will win. Remember, FIDF is not taking a dime for overhead during our emergency campaign. So this Hanukkah, you can be a light to our soldiers, and your gifts will be matched. Together, we will show the enemies of the Jewish people, from Iran to the hate marchers in a city near you, that they messed with the wrong generation of Jews. We are here, we are united, and we are not going anywhere. So stick with FIDF to ensure the Jewish future. May we only see revealed miracles for Israel and our beloved soldiers now and always. Am Yisrael Chai forever.